Good evening. We're so glad you could be with us for this, the third concert of our season. Just a little bit of explanation of what you're about to hear tonight and about the cryptic picture on the front of your program that bears no relationship whatsoever to March. And that highly evocative title of the concert, March Concert. Tonight, the program we have for you is representative of composers from several countries, from 4 countries. So a little more global reach than you normally hear in an orchestral concert. We open with a work from England, followed by a work actually written in Sweden by a composer from the Czech Republic. The second half of the concert, Beethoven, of course, born in Bonn, Germany, but his career centered in Vienna. And we'll close with Aram Khachaturian, an Armenian composer of the 20th century. So we have a little bit of a tour for you in this concert. Most orchestral repertoire that we play centers around music from Germany, Austria, and France. So a little bit of a wider grasp today. I'd like to open with a Moorside Suite by Gustav Holst, as transcribed for orchestra by Gordon Jacob. This work began life as a piece for, of all things, brass band. Brass band is a big deal in England. There are major brass band competitions, have been for most of the last century. And brass bands are not just community organizations, but they're sponsored by business and industry. So most of the brass band's names have attached to them a company that sponsors them. And like I say, it's a big deal. Gustav Holst is one of the major British composers of the first half of the 20th century, probably best known in the orchestral world for writing the suite titled The Planets. This is a smaller scale suite, but has all of Holst's hallmarks. You're going to hear music that is quite tuneful, but none of it is based on folk music. It's all original composition by Gustav Holst. So we'd like to open with a Moorside Suite. in a program that has a few pieces that aren't completely familiar. This next piece is probably the most unusual. Smetana, Bedřich Smetana, is a Czech composer, very well known for two works. His opera, The Bartered Bride, and a cycle of tone poems known as Moplast, or My Fatherland, from which Moldau is performed separately often. Great works, both of them. But as most composers, he wrote much more than the works that are the most familiar. And he lived part of his life outside of the Czech Republic. For a few years, he lived in Gothenburg in Sweden. Orchestra there was first rate, one of the oldest orchestras in Europe. Great town for music. And while he was there, he composed a series of 3 tone poems, all based upon some type of Swedish or at least Scandinavian literature, history, so forth. The first one was titled Richard III. The second one was entitled Wallenstein's Camp. And the third one is the one we're about to do for you, Håkan Jarl. And the story of Håkan Jarl is a little twisted because there are 2 accounts. The historical account in which Håkan Jarl was the leader, the Norse leader, in the period of about years 950, not 950 to 970 AD. And it was at this time that there was an attempt to establish the Christian religion in the Norse countries. Historically, Håkan Jarl was not in favor of it. In 1804, a Danish playwright, whose name I will not try to pronounce, wrote a play based on the life of Håkan Jarl. But in the play, Håkan Jarl takes the other side and is the one responsible for establishing Christianity in what was to become Sweden. And it was on this play that Smetana wrote this tone poem. So you'll hear in this music that is very regal, fanfare-like, almost coronation march-like, very similar to what you heard in the march movement of Moorside Suite. You will hear very lyrical, almost operatic type melodies and writing. And you will also hear at the end, in the music that we're playing from, it says Andante Religioso. But it's this very beautiful, almost like a choral prelude type of setting, sustained notes in the winds and this very active accompaniment in the strings. And it's, of course, this is all playing out this story of Håkan Jarl as both leader, king, if you will, although that wasn't the title, and then the whole notion of bringing the Christian religion to Scandinavia. It sounds very much under the influence of 2 other composers, Franz Liszt, who Smetana had just encountered and become friends with, who probably influenced this a lot because Liszt in his life went from virtuoso showman, pianist, writing things that people thought were of the devil, to becoming a cleric in the Catholic Church and writing much church music in the last part of his life. So maybe the influence of Liszt is in this tone poem as well. He was also influenced heavily by Wagner, and you're going to hear one very clear allusion if you're familiar with Wagner's music, particularly his opera Tristan and Isolde. You're going to hear a very clear reference from the first few measures of Tristan. So, with that, this is Håkan Jarl by Bedřich Smetana.